Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for August 12th, 2022. I am Benjamin Fisher, moderating and sharing my screen. And also here are Antonia, Ralph Kohler, Simo Helston, and Thomas Howell. So we have a mix of front-end and back-end developers. I think, Antonia, you're a designer. Thomas is a site builder. So none of us are officially usability experts, but we do have a wide variety of backgrounds, which is useful. I'm looking now at the issue 3302079. Antonia corrects me, she's a developer, not a designer. This is the issue for today's meeting, and we have quite a few issues that have requested review. I've looked at, I guess, the first and the last in this comment, and I think they need a fair amount of preparation before we can have a useful discussion. So I don't think we can look at either of those today. And I wonder if it makes sense to find a volunteer. I can probably prepare at least one of those to talk about next week. Would any of you be prepared to look at one of the other issues and have it ready for discussion next week? You're all muted in case any of you are trying to answer. Oh, and Offer Shal just joined us.
Hello.
Hi. So Offer, for your information, we are saving this part of the recording, and I'm asking if anyone can take some time over the next week and prepare to discuss one of the issues that have been requested. I will try to present either the first or the last, the project messaging channel and core, or implement a generic revision UI. Okay, are there any of these other issues that, just guessing from the title, or maybe you've looked at them previously, we can have useful discussion about?
Two of the issues are mine. I've reported them, so I know them a bit. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Pick one.
Well, the user help text for user admin permissions is outdated. Is one, it's a short wordsmithing one, and the other is the one I've added in the comment about prevent accidental logouts on row settings page and clarify the corresponding description. I could also, in case we do it now, also ping Brandon, who joined me in the Drupal Dojo working on that issue most of the time, and he could also provide input, and he would be available today, so it would be a good fit that way.
Okay. So do you want to try pinging him in Slack, and I can
exactly
open the issue?
Doing right now.
So this, for the sake of the recording, this is issue 3293874. Prevent accidental lockouts on the role settings page and clarify the corresponding description for its select box. Problems rather long. Proposed solution had a confirmation dialogue. So Ralph, shall I keep sharing my screen, or do you want to take over?
I could quickly spin up an instance.
I do have.
Oh, you have? Okay, then we'll go to.
This is a 9.5 dev site.
Good.
Can you walk me through what the problem is?
Easiest
hang on a second. Let me also share the link in the Zoom chat. This is being shared with ngrok, so anyone can log in with admin. Sorry, go ahead, Rolf.
The easiest would be if you, I suppose you only have the admin user created right now, and
Yes.
yeah, then maybe create a new user. And add the administrator role to that user as well. Okay. And then create. Now log in as that particular new user.
Okay, so I think I'll have to start by logging out.
Yep. Or open a private window.
Oh, but this is the window I'm sharing, so.
Yeah. And now go to manage. To the people. And to the role settings page.
Oh, this is a fairly new tab, isn't it?
Yep, it is. And there you're able to assign a new role as the administrator role, and now change from administrator to content editor. And now you're completely logged out. That's the problem.
Okay, that does seem like a problem.
Indeed, especially when we got aware during the dojo, it was in a real life situation where the user with the admin access per accident changed on the role settings page that exactly in the same way, and then for 1 or 2 days they were debugging and were unable to access it because the user ID 1 safeguard wasn't available, so they were unable to get in. And that is problematic, let's put it that way.
Okay, so before we move on, are there any questions about the steps I just went through? Offer, go ahead.
Yeah, I have, I guess, a related question. I know there's a long time issue about stop making user 1 special. Is it related? Was there any work? Because as far as I know, that issue is not in core yet. Do you know if it's related?
It sort of related, at least in the regard that the convenience of having a user with the ID 1 as a safeguard available isn't there anymore if that issue lands, and I've posted that issue on the admin 1 issue already and made it a related issue because it's of relevance. Let's put it that way.
Let me just close this tab. And let's going back to the issue. Remove the special behavior for UID 1. So there's the issue Offer was referring to. So so yeah, that issue, as you say, has been around for a long time. And I was able to log in as user 1, but many people consider it a security risk to have the known user ID 1 have this special privilege, and it is possible to block user 1, and many people think that's good from a security point of view. So presumably that's the situation for the site where this really happened. Offer, you wanted to say something else?
Yeah, I think there's a correct me if I'm wrong, there is a notion of if you can get to the metal, like if you have access to code, you would be able to do certain things that maybe the UI, mistakes in the UI can be fixed there. But I guess that is what we're trying to solve, like almost like while there's certain, if it's a comparable, while there's content in a content type, you shouldn't be able to delete the content type because it's kind of another safeguard. So is that what we're trying to solve in what we just saw?
Yeah, we haven't started talking about this proposed solution yet. So far, I just want to make sure that the problem is understood. And yes, I have Drush available. I could fix it that way. Thomas, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say something that was solution oriented. I'd rather wait until we get to this the proposed solution
Okay.
before I get in my idea.
So Ralph, you want to talk about what the proposed solution is?
As written there, one option would be to add a confirmation dialog asking the user if he or she is sure about the step and the possible consequences. And another level of safety would be to test if the user applying the change on the role settings page has still the permission administer roles and permissions. That way, the particular user would get the role settings page in Olivero or the active front-end theme. So that would be another fail-safe, so to say.
And in that second option, what would you do if the user doesn't have that permission? Would you then fall back to the first option of the confirmation form?
We were not sure entirely. Definitely, it should be an informed decision that the user is fully aware of the consequences. It shouldn't be just without any confirmation dialogue, the role be switched. That shouldn't happen in any case. That's for sure, because it could have consequences. And there's also to note the description underneath the select box should be also updated and adjusted.
The description underneath.
On the page you were right. Yeah.
I'd rather, it's a little bit larger here.
Yeah.
And it's actual text rather than a screenshot. This role will be automatically assigned new permissions whenever a module is enabled. Changing the setting will not affect existing permissions. Yeah, I've noticed that too. I think that's a separate issue, but I wouldn't mind fixing it as part of this one. This text is quite inaccurate.
Yeah, because the problem is the default permissions for the administrator role. An administrator role doesn't have any permissions per default. That's right. The problem.
Yeah, Thomas, go ahead. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. So I had a couple of different thoughts. The first is I'm absolutely 2 thumbs up to a confirmation, but my experience has been that with some of these weird permissions type things, a lot of users don't understand authorization and how those models work. So even putting confirmation, they're going to click through. If they're on this page making changes, there's a high probability that they're also still going to click through confirmation. So it's key to have it, but I don't know that it would really safeguard more than a minority of the time. The second thing is I'm trying to think of how the model could work, but a lot of TFA uses something where you get one-time codes. And so basically handing out one-time codes that did something, or something that allowed a temporary change so that you could recover and it would be independent. I don't know if that's a security leak, if that's something that's risky, but I was just thinking that is a known model that TFA tends to use. The third thing I was thinking about was when making this type of change, when the confirmation comes up, it should be able to test to see if you will be able to still be administrator with your present role. And maybe it has a checkbox or an option to automatically assign that role to the current user that is logged in after you press save configuration, or after you accept the dialogue. So those are my three thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, good points. Antonio, go ahead. Or you've unraised your hand.
Well, I guess Thomas covered it pretty well, I'd say.
Okay.
The confirmation is definitely a must-have, but I think the last part that Thomas said would also be a nice addition, checking if the user will still be an admin after the change.
Okay, so yeah, I think it's non-controversial. Anyone speak up if you disagree, but confirmation form is a good first step. No reason not to do it, and we should be considering what further steps to take in addition to a confirmation form. Offer, go ahead.
Yeah, of course, agree with the confirmation. I remember a few months ago, we had a discussion around what happened when, I forgot if it was about canceling accounts or there was something that had to do with user access, and we spoke about the email confirmations and security around that. In the meantime, I tried opening a Drupal site, created a user that is an admin, and as that admin, not user number one, I tried to cancel my own account. To my good surprise, I was still able to use the admin because the first thing in the status message that appeared was a confirmation request to cancel your account has been sent to your email address. So I think a similar thing to what we just saw now would be really, really helpful. Kind of confirm from the email if I'm the whoever's allowed to make that change, and I chose to switch it to a different role, and all of a sudden I'm going to lose it. I'm getting an email about it, and only through the email I can, really make sure I'm well aware what I'm going to do, and not all of a sudden, because clicking a button, losing all access.
Okay, so you're suggesting some sort of email confirmation. Thomas suggested some sort of one-time password type token.
Or
I have a funny idea. You know how if you change the display settings on your monitor, and you choose a resolution that the monitor doesn't support or something, a little confirmation box comes up and says, click here to confirm, and if you do nothing, then it reverts to the original setting. I wonder if we could follow that sort of pattern. Ralph, go ahead.
Or would it make sense? I think Thomas suggested some sort of checkbox to assign a role, but maybe instead of checking the role, just the person, the user who is changing the administrator role from administrator to content editor, for example, just to auto-assign that role to that person changing. So that is ensured that that person definitely still is administrator.
That has the virtue of being a lot simpler than some of the other proposals we've had. Simo, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think it's a okay idea to have the automatic assigned role as the new administrator role, but there are some use cases where the specific intent is to like assign the role to someone else, but that's probably not very common. So to keep the user as, but oh yeah, was thinking while I was talking, that would allow a user to we need to make sure that this is governed by the same permission as changing one's own role. So if you can change these settings, then you are allowed to change your own role. So that's probably so, but it's not obvious. So we need to check that. If that applies, that you are allowed to change into any role, if you are allowed to change this one, then it's fine to have that possibility to assign automatically. And also, if we wouldn't assign automatically, so kind of the minimum would be to check that there is a user account, that at least one user account that has that role, because it would be also kind of bad idea if there would be no user account that does have that.
Yeah, I think the permission to access this role settings page is administer user. So that certainly grants permission to change anyone's role, and in particular your own. So I don't think that's an issue. But Thomas, go ahead.
I actually would slightly invert my suggestion. I think the default behavior out of the process should be to tell the person you're assigning the new role to their current user account, and then give them the chance to opt out of that behavior for those edge cases, so that the default behavior ensures that the person who's currently logged in continues to have the right set of permissions. The second thing is I do like the idea of email, but I've been in situations, especially like Gov, where you're not allowed to have external emails, or you may not have an email server on your web server. So it's pretty important to have a fallback mechanism and not rely 100% of the time on an email confirmation. Thank you.
Yeah, I think certainly if we are changing permissions on an account, we should notify the user that we're doing that. So that's like not even worth discussing, unless someone disagrees. We should definitely give some feedback and probably a link to the user edit page. Say, if you really want to take away your own permission, then do it here. Offer, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry if someone already mentioned that. I think a good safeguard would be that when you open that, what are the other options that you can assign it to? You will have a message that you can only assign it to roles you already have, and kind of manually make you go, as opposed to the automatic way, go assign myself editor, and only then I can go back here and switch it to editor. So I never lose. I can never get myself lose access. That's one idea. And something I just tested, I don't know if it's a bug or if that would happen. I created another editor in role settings, switch it, like made the switch from admin to editor. I'm still able to log in with my admin user 1. But I don't know, that's probably a sidetrack. So admin user 1 for me did not lose the actual access.
Okay, that's because of the special behavior of user 1, right?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so. So yeah, that would also be fairly easy to implement. Only show in this menu roles that the current user has. What about this none option? Like, why is that even there?
High security.
You can't save the form, right?
I think I can save the form. Why not?
Really?
No.
So no admin at all?
So, so let's see, I guess the way to confirm this is to open up your permissions page, and administrator has no permissions.
Oh boy.
So that seems to work. Yeah, that's that's a really weird option. I don't know why we provided that option. But it actually happened on a site I was working on that that somehow the no role was granted this special administrator role status. And so they were going, and every time they enabled a module, they added a bunch of permissions to the administrator role, except sometimes they forgot to do that. Anyway, yeah, this can happen. I don't know why we make it so easy through the UI to do that. And I suppose before doing anything about that, the first step is to look at the history, look at the issue that added this role settings tab, and see whether there was any discussion of the none option and why it was added. Does anyone remember offhand? So one possibility is to have a follow-up option to remove this none option. In the absence of that, if there is a good reason for keeping the none option, what is our protection in if someone does choose this? Like, we can have a confirmation form, yes. We can customize the message in that confirmation form if someone chooses the none option. Say, are you really, 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 really sure that you want to do this? But we don't have the we don't have the options of assigning a role to the current user to make sure. So, so one of the suggestions was to limit this list to roles that the user has. And we could also exclude the none option unless one of those roles has the permission to access this page, the administer user settings or whatever it is.
If we filter the options in the select, though, maybe we should add a description about it, because someone who only has the admin role might be thrown off by the fact that the select has no options at all to choose from.
Yes, we would
because
certainly.
They forgot that they don't have the role assigned.
We would certainly have to change the help text, which gets back to the thing we were saying before, that the text that's currently there is wildly inaccurate. So we can kill two birds with one stone. Yeah, anything else you wanted to say?
No, I'm fine with a new description.
Okay, Simo?
Yeah, I was thinking that I don't like hiding information, like the user who has access to it has access to administer roles. So I think it's kind of a bad idea to hide hide some roles as options. So it's better to have that option to assign the current user with that role on this form. But then we need to also add a check that if the current user opts out from getting that role assigned, there is at least one user that has that role. But I don't like the idea of hiding options.
Yeah, one drawback to that suggestion of checking that at least one user has the role is that it's complicated. You have to make sure there's a user that's not blocked, and even if there is one that might on an old site, that maybe no one really has access to that role. So it's complicated and it might not be effective. So I don't really like that suggestion. Offer, go ahead.
Yeah, so just to confirm, like we could actually show what are the roles that are on the site and specifically mention you cannot assign this and this and this because you do not have this role, and give the explanation. But one of the things that I want to bring in is, for me, the help text that exists right now is I do not understand what it says. Like what it's confusing for me. I don't know if we're going to completely change it anyway.
I say we should completely change it because
Okay.
Not only is it confusing to you, but it is inaccurate.
Yeah. Thanks.
And I noticed that when I ran into the site I was working with, where there was no administrator role. Thomas, go ahead.
So I'm thinking about the usability of this as a site administrator, and I don't know if this directly relates to the types of changes we're talking about, but if I had 3 administrators and one of the administrators, so all 3 of us had the administrator role, and one person changed it, I'm not seeing how this would notify the other administrators that they no longer had administrative access.
That's an interesting point. The usual point of view is that when you give someone admin access, they can do anything they want on the site, including lock out other users. If someone has permission to change user roles, that person can remove the administrator role from the other administrators and take over the site.
But you would still see that if I were to log in and you changed what the role was, it would not be immediately visible to me. And I'm thinking of the context where, let's say 3 of us on this call were all administrators. One of us had our account hacked. Someone came in, changed the role. It would still look to the other people like they had administrative access, and they wouldn't. It would be very difficult to troubleshoot, at least through the UI, what had behaviorally changed.
Okay, so you'd like some sort of notification to the other administrators. Ralph is giving a thumbs up to that idea.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay, Offer?
Did we discuss like when would that be used? Like I'm trying to find the original issue that made it, so I'm guessing there's going to be discussion there. But like, what are the edge cases where I want, admin roles to move to something else?
I think what I immediately come up with is that somebody just wants to have a different name for that role and not just the predefined, but I mean, is it possible to rename that?
Yeah, it's certainly possible to rename roles.
I mean, it's in the UI and it sounds to me such an edge case. I'm trying to understand what was the background of putting it out there, with all the potential issues it might cause when people go click things.
I'm sorry, what are you questioning, Offer? Specifically the none option, or
this page? No, this whole page.
The whole page.
What is it supposed to serve? What kind of examples are, yes, when this happened, we would switch it to someone else.
Well, one reason is similar logic that is behind that. We don't want to have user 1 because everybody knows it's number 1. So it's here everybody would know, because I just noticed that it has the machine name is administrator. So it would, everybody would know that if we can hack somehow, we can get access to the machine name role administrator, then it would be a similar logic that everybody knows it's administrator, that is administrator. But that's kind of I think there should be better ways to safeguard that.
Yeah, I think we need to review the issue that added this page and see what the discussion there is. Oh, Thomas is in the chat is agreeing with what Timo just said. It's a security thing. Ralph, go ahead. You're muted.
There's also notice, thank you. There's also another edge case we already opened an issue for with the role settings page. In case you have more than one administrator role, then that page is empty or broken, however you want to call it. That's also a problem then.
Okay,
so
that seems like a bug, but it seems like a different issue.
Yeah, it is. But no, but in general, back to Ofer's question about the purpose of that administrator of this role settings page, that would be interesting to ask, because it's causing more problems than it's solving, basically.
Looking at the help text, I really think like the idea behind it was different, almost like what we saw in the permission role. In the permission page, it's kind of when adding a new module, you know, who should automatically get. That's what it seems to be, but it seems to do more than that. Or, yeah, I don't know if that's the security was. I am trying to find what is the issue that added that. No success so far.
Yeah, maybe this is the way it worked in Drupal 7, that the administrator role got new permissions when modules were enabled. I'm quite sure that that's not the effect of the administrator role in Drupal 9.
I mean, right now, if you're adding a module, administrator gets permission to all of it, isn't it? For a new module?
The administrator role has all permissions. That's just the way it works.
Okay.
Whether the module was enabled yesterday or tomorrow, administrator role gets all permissions.
And in the permission page, it doesn't show yes or no for each permission?
So currently, remember, I've selected none, so there are no permissions for the administrator, and it shows blank checkboxes in that column. And if I change it back to the default, and reload the page, then they're all checked off and you can't uncheck them. Okay. Was there no confirmation message when I submitted the form? That seems like an issue too. No confirmation message.
No.
Okay, so I think we have two proposals here, and we have to decide which makes the most sense. So first of all, no question, we're going to have a confirmation form. And then the two options are one, forcibly assign the role to the current user, and of course give some feedback and a link to change that. And the other is to limit the list to roles that have permission. I'm sorry, limit the list in some way. So it could be limiting the list to roles that have permission to edit this, or it could be roles that the current user has, with something to be worked out for the none option. Many decisions to be made. I won't even call them details. Many decisions to be made about how to limit the list. But the basic two proposals are to limit this list or to assign a permission when the user submits the confirmation form. And we could even include feedback in the confirmation form. You will be assigned this role. So can we have do we want any discussion before we take a vote on those two options? Then let's go to a vote. If anyone was trying to say anything, you were muted. I don't see anything in the chat. Oh, I do see one thing in the chat that Ralph found the issue. Is this the one that added this page?
Yeah. Previously, that page or that functionality was on the accounts page for people in the configuration, and it was moved to a dedicated page.
Okay, so for the sake of the recording, the issue number is 987978. Move administrator settings to new role settings form. So this functionality was already there, but it may have changed while it was being moved over. Thank you for that, Ralph. Okay. Quick show of hands, a thumbs up or speak up, or put it in the chat if you think that we should assign a role to the current user when they submit the confirmation form. Get a +1 from Ralph, thumbs up from Simo. I think I'm in favor of that too. And I guess you're allowed to vote for both if you like. So we have 3 votes, and Thomas also gives a +1 in the chat. So we have 4 votes for that. That's close to consensus. And who thinks that we should limit the list? Simo brought up the point that that's sort of hiding information. And Offer, go ahead.
To clarify, it's not about hiding any information. I want it to be the same idea of, but just I'm thinking when we auto assign, I could make editors admins by mistake. And by telling me, if you want editors to have admin rights, go put yourself, yeah, we could do it easily for you, but go assign yourself editor, go back here, this is such an edge case, I feel, that we should make the extra legwork to prevent people by like, okay, now me and everybody that is editor can have admin rights. That's my thought.
Okay, so the workflow would be something like you give a link to edit your profile so that it's 1 click rather than 2 clicks. You'd have to assign yourself the content editor role and save, and then presumably we could have you return to this page, and then you would be able to choose content editor.
Right, where this could become a little bit different UI, where you have a checkbox that looks differently. And as the list just show you, these are roles you do not have, and that's why they cannot be assigned.
Okay, Ralph, go ahead.
About that idea, I like, on second thought, the idea of make it a bit more cumbersome for the user. And I wonder, would it make sense if you reflect that in the description, that you provide there a direct link to the user's user page, that it's a direct link there, and the person is able to add the role necessary he or she wants to go to, and then move back? Would that make sense? To make it a bit more convenient, at least.
Okay. Thomas?
So I still worry about making it too complex because in support, I've seen so many sites where people have an insane number of roles for some reason. And I know some of the excuses I've been given, but I've seen sites where they've had 30 or 40 different roles. And I think regardless of which of these choices they go with, it needs to be very clear, like during the confirmation process, it really needs to be clear, like, do you intend to make role X administrator? And I think something that would also help is if while doing that, it would say this would give 10 users or 10 accounts. It would show some indication of how many users use that role. But something to give critic, because this is an edge case, but it's also very powerful. And I worry about making it too complex in that we increase the chances of mistakes. But on the other hand, like, I'll support whatever the group does. But I think this is dodgier than it looks, and it's not solved simply.
Okay. Yeah, there's even a module that automatically creates 2 roles, I think, every time you add new content type. And that may be related to the sites you've seen with ridiculous numbers of roles. Simo, go ahead. You're muted.
Yeah, so yeah, it kind of depends on how many roles you have. If you have 30 roles, then it's not very, not quite, like very bad idea. But if we want to limit the options, then we could have something like that kind of widget that would have options displayed but disabled. So having like so that you can't select a role you don't have already, but you would see all the roles there. That would be better. But if it's like we can't use, it's kind of getting complicated if you have like 30 roles.
Okay, so rather than remove things from the list, you would disable some options. I think that's probably a better idea. And of course, the help text would have to explain that if you want to enable those, you have to assign it to yourself first. And then it's possible but cumbersome to assign it to yourself, make that the admin role, and then unassign it from yourself. And it's okay to be cumbersome for an edge case like that. So shall we vote again? So one option is to automatically assign a role to the current user, and the other option is to disable roles that the current user doesn't have, with help text explaining what to do. Shall we take another vote? I'll do it in the same order as before. Who approves of automatically assigning the permission when you submit the confirmation form? No one? Ralph gives +1 for signing. I also think it's a good option. But only 2 of us. And who likes the second option of disabling items in the select list if the current user doesn't have them? I'm getting a thumbs up from Offer. Thomas is abstaining, getting a thumbs up from Simo. Offer suggests using a different UX than a select list. And that is probably going to happen anyway, because Ralph mentioned this other issue that if there are 2 admin roles and this page is broken, so we pretty much have to convert it to checkboxes, I guess.
But one brief addition to that, the more than one administrator role issue might be fixed Because there is another issue for creating an administrator role object, which leads basically to a single administrator role, because it doesn't make much sense to have more than one administrator role. I can look up that one quickly. 1 second.
Thomas, go ahead.
So I fear this is off topic, but to me, it's on topic. We're talking in that other issue around removing the special privileges of Administrator 1. I believe that in that issue, we should weigh in that anything that happens along those lines should be part of this form or this page at least, because I would be very confused trying to figure out where I needed to go to change different aspects of administration. And knowing whether or not admin 1 still retained those special privileges is not clear on this page. And I would want to know that.
Okay, I think we've already linked that as a related issue. So I think people working on this issue will be aware of the issue to remove the special behavior of user 1. I don't know that we need to do it both ways. We
What
can
I mean
certainly
is,
add a comment to this issue. Maybe Ralph already has. Go ahead.
what I mean is I want information about the state on the same page that I'm changing roles around. I'm talking about the actual Drupal page itself. So when we're looking at the Drupal page here,
This page?
this page, I want to know, like, it's kind of implied that when you change to content editor, the only, like when I read this page, I would assume the only editor is content editor, like that's the new role. And I feel like these behaviors are not just linked as Drupal.org issues, but I think from a usability perspective, these issues are related and they need to be visible in the same UI, even if it's just something on this page that tells you that, but it's just, I don't know. I'm just thinking it through and how I wouldn't even know that was happening unless I was an old-time Drupal user. And I'm assuming this isn't just getting rid of that behavior. Maybe I don't understand this issue enough. I was assuming that this gives you the option of undoing special privileges for user 1. If the issue is actually get rid of it permanently in all instances, then I would ignore me. But if it's an option, then I believe the option is linked to this page from a usability perspective.
Yeah, I believe that this issue 540008 is to completely remove that special behavior, that just rely on the fact that a role can be declared the administrator role.
Understood. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I thought I misinterpreted this as giving us the option to do it. I didn't realize this was a total break with that behavior.
That's a complete removal.
Yeah, special behavior should be removed. Instead, there is an admin role that always has all permissions. And the second part of that has already been implemented. And meanwhile, Ralph gave us in chat a link to this issue, 3299196, which is postponed if there is more than one administrator role, the role settings feature breaks. So presumably part of the solution is to change this the UI page we've been looking at, and I assume that the idea is to use it. No,
if you click the related issue, introduce a role settings config object, that's basically the ideal solution. And that's the point about that you get to a single administrator role and prevent having more than one. That's the underlying issue. I just posted the other for context.
Oh, okay. So this is 3229029. So remove the ability to have more than one administrator role. Making the config object seems like an implementation detail to me. We're coming up on the end of the hour. We don't seem to have consensus between the two options, so I guess we should just leave a comment providing those two options for further discussion. Anything further to say on this? So the recommendation is, one, definitely have a confirmation form. That's not controversial. And then the two possibilities we've discussed are to automatically assign the selected role to the current user, or to disable the roles in the list that the current user doesn't have. Ralph, do you want to add that comment to the issue?
Yeah, I'm already typing a note to myself that I can extend later on.
Okay, thank you.
And also, should we also put into the notify other administrators by email, like Thomas suggested, that they get informed that they are losing their privileges?
Mention that as something that came up. I don't think we have a consensus that that's necessarily part of this issue. It might be a follow-up, an idea for discussion. Okay, thank you all for coming. We are at the top of the hour, so hope to see you next week.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a nice
Bye.
weekend.
Thank you.